Part 83. After My Death, The Villain Blackened Again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 828. Looking back, even when Renai himself couldn't believe that he would take such a path. He shook his hand to open the envelope. Fool. The assassination in Beijing was a game set by my father. I knew from the beginning that you were King Rui. My mother, after she was a tadpole, she died of giving birth to me after being with my father. Because of this, my father has been very indulgent to me since childhood. I am not a normal girl. Although the children born of a combination of people and people are beautiful, many are deformed or accompanied by some strange diseases. I'm sick. On the 15th of every month, my body will show symptoms like animal hair/estrus. With such symptoms, I will still be very painful, especially painful, just like your abdominal pain that day pain, 15th a month. That kind of pain lasts all day. In order to help me solve this problem, my father pooled human and financial resources. Later, he extracted the medicinal materials prepared from the savage brain blood to stabilize my condition. My father step by step to the end of today's plagiarism, all because of me. Damn, to this day, I never blame you. Countless people died because of me, and countless others got married to my father's wife, Ayan-san, because of me. My father, in the final analysis, was just one of my uncles. I regret it. Dad, that day I watched the children flow out from the belly. I was so distressed that I was going to die. Then I thought that those families whose wives are scattered because of me have no less pain than me. I enjoyed the honor accumulated by the bones, and I should experience the pain experienced by those people. Damn, I don't hate you, I never hated you. I am grateful to you. In my life, I am sorry for my parents, for those who died because of me, for you, and for the child in my belly. What you want to do, you help me do it. Everything I want to end, you also help me end. Damn, I'm gone, don't you feel bad? Damn, I just want you to be okay. In the envelope, there were a lot of stationery. He opened them one by one. In addition to the official paper she wrote, the other stationery were few words. He sealed the land and looked at it very seriously. He was sitting in the middle of the children's clothes on the bed, just like a child. He looked at the letters and couldn't help crying. He remembered that he had abdominal pain, and the antidote she fed him had a smell. That was her blood, and what she called the antidote was her blood. He used to think she was lying to him. But now thinking again, the pain he experienced may be the kind of pain she endured every 15th month, otherwise, she would not be so clear. She really doesn't hate him. In her bitch's stationery, everything was written to wish him well and still explain him in a sentence. She doesn't hate him. But he hated himself. Under the red plum tree, he dug out him and her children little by little, and he placed them together in the coffin. On several occasions, he wanted to pounce on them, sleep with them, and then protect them. Yes, it still can't be done. Behind him, behind brothers and mothers, there are people all over the world. There are countless aides who trust him. He can't and dare not be selfish. She was buried as Princess Rui, and that day she saw her disappearing before him. He felt as if his soul had disappeared at that moment. Later, many times late at night, he was awakened in dreams. In the dream, under the dead bones was her outstretched hand. She smiled at him, "You are coming." After My Death, The Villain Blackened Again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 829. When Yanj returned to the green hat space, he glanced at everything in the space. Just like when she left, her mood was suddenly better. She had previously worried that she would complete the plain task and that the green hat system would fall apart. This is what she wants now. Looking at his own chaotic space, the body tree has grown a small green bud, and the green buds are getting more and more, that is, the branches are still delicate, and the wind blows down and is really not strong. Stout is totally incomparable. Suan Weopot is really well behaved recently, and I don't know if he will let the guy spit out what she had eaten. Will it be willing? Such things, if you think about it, will definitely not. Yan Ji sighed a little sadly. The chick followed her and sighed. At a glance, the green hat on the chick's head changed from 1 to 2, and the two piled together were particularly happy and beautiful. She smiled and asked the chick, "Is this mission completed?" The chick unrolled his green hat. The green hat system has a rating for the completion of the task. This time you completed the task very well. The host is very satisfied, so the system rewards you with a small gift. It said so, grinning that pointed mouth and chanting, "Hey, what a gift! The gift from the green hat system will not be the green hat?" Yan Ji has a little expectation. If it is a green hat, she can wear it on the body in her chaotic space, and it should be very imposing. Seeing Yan Ji's apparently expectant expression, the chicken hummed his head coldly, disdained to look at the unusual wood in front of him. Zhu Wei jumped out from the back of the sofa and stood with the cubs. He said to him, "Sister, the gift of the green hat system reward is very suitable for you. As the existence of the system reward, I can help you study new gifts together." Yan Ji glanced at him. "You are so noisy, next time I meet the devouring beast, I will give you to him." Since entering the space, Zhu Wei has not encountered the devouring beast. If it were not for the reminder of the song, it would have long forgotten the guy who swallowed the devouring beast. When I heard the words, I was frightened and rushed to please the song. "Sister, don't you, there is only one fox like me in the world, and your collection is so meaningful. It is a market that rewards Miss Sister. There are countless ways to buy an ammo stick on the market." Although the rolled a small green eye toward Nine-Tail, it still gloated over the reward of the green hat system. The green hat system is indeed the green hat system. The thing about this green hat is not only a slogan, but also it goes all out towards the goal. The top position of the whole body green and ammo stick is exactly the shape of a green hat. Yan Ji stared in astonishment, and afterwards the reaction came back, admiring, "It's beautiful. Chicken, this piece of wood is completely abnormal." Yan Ji's eyes turned and fell on the cub. "This thing should reward you. I'll soak in the plane. This kind of props are not used, you keep it, and if you have a girlfriend in the future, if your impotence is not good, you can use this gadget instead." The voice of Yanj was thoughtful and gentle, and the screamed and rushed up again. Of course, it ends with a feather. Entering a new level, Yanj suddenly realized that this and ammo stick seemed to come in handy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 830. The host Xia Qingming is the adopted daughter of President Luo Zi. The host was raised by Luo Zi from small to large, and also adjusted from small to large. At the age of 16, Lors, who had petted her as a princess, gave himself to the host as a gift, and then swallowed the host. Speaking of which, the host's life experience should be the routine of the big president Ziajiao's wife, and still develop a series. According to the routine written in the novel, after the two got married, they lived the favor of Musha and the days of sleep. However, the ending in the novel is never the final ending. The host naturally married Luz when he was old, and he has always been petted and sleepy by Luz. Outsiders seem to have a wonderful marriage life, and even the host feels that their days are particularly good. But later, Luo Zi's only son, Luo Fei, about the same size as his host, died of illness. Luo Zi is the big president, his industries are numerous, and the Luo family has always been a century-old family. The roots of the family can't be broken here in Los. So Lodz had to have a son to take over his estate. But the host cannot produce. When he got married, Lawzit said that he had to live a sexual life with two people. A third party was never allowed to get involved, not even the host and his son. And the host's body has not been good, so Lowe's simply asked the doctor to sterilize the host. Lauder had a woman outside, and at first it was just a surrogacy. But later, he was attracted by the woman's intellectual elegance and cleverness, and he couldn't stand the naive, silly, and capricious host at home. When the divorce book was left in front of the host thought for a moment that Lors was joking with her. The host's life was almost always in the castle given by Lowe's. She rebelliously wanted to escape from the castle when she was in school, but she did not succeed every time. Gradually, she became accustomed to living in the castle given to her by Lowe's and enjoyed such fun. But she did not expect that one day the castle would collapse. The host is of course not reconciled. From the time she had a memory, Lowe's liked to hug her and feed her with a sip. As long as Lowe's was at home, she would hug her to sleep, and would comfort her and pet her. And now, the man said to her, "We have a strange relationship. You treat me as a father and I have always treated you as a daughter. We shouldn't have such a relationship." A fluttering sentence took all the things he had done to her for the first half of her life. The host is not reconciled, especially knowing that another woman is still pregnant with Lor's child. She naively thought that the woman had attracted Lor's attention with the child. She can have children, too. However, when she went to the hospital for examination, she learned that she had been sterilized and could not have children. She wanted to drive away the woman again and again, to protect her castle. But in the end, she was scolded by Lowe's for being vicious and thrown abroad by Lowe's, and her life also came to an abrupt end on her 25th birthday. Songs of Songs merge the memories of the host. Instantly drowned by the host's monstrous unwillingness. It took a long time before the emotions calmed down. In fact, as an onlooker, Yan Ji sees the relationship between Luozi and his host very well. The host is a love pet raised from childhood to big by Lowe's. He adjusted the host a little bit to the way he wanted, and there was no interest in continuing to conquer. It is normal for the host to be thrown away. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 831. The host's world is controlled by Luozi. In her growth, Luozi was like a pillar of her house. It can be said that she relied on Luozi entirely. Luozi was leaving her house. It will naturally collapse. So men's each other mountain alliance, in the final analysis, there is a fresh keeping period. If the host dies early, Lazar may forget about his whole life, but when the host is alive, it becomes an extra object that is no longer needed. Bored. Relying on men is worse than relying on yourself. Unfortunately, the host didn't understand this until he died. The wish of the host is very simple. This time she wants to settle down in this position of Mrs. Luo. She wants to be the only woman in her life. She has always loved her, and pained for her. She wished to hold Rouse's nose instead of being led by Rouse. Not only must she sit firmly in the position of Mrs. Luo, she also has to sleep with other men in front of Luo's, pregnant with other men's children. It can be said that this desire is actually boring and extreme. However, this idea is also suitable for people like the host. The chicken snorted coldly, "Does this host want to put on Lor's green hat? Why is this necessary? Someone can help her fulfill her wish. Why doesn't she want to spend her whole life, like Lor's? What about scum separation? Yeah, stepping on a shit, most people should quickly wash their shoes clean, and then stay away from this and continue on the road to see the scenery on the road. Why is the host still so shit? It's more exciting. Normal people cannot understand the practice of the host. Yanj understands. The host is not a normal person, and she has taught her almost all the thoughts, including the 3 perspectives. It was normal for her to have such a wish. The time to enter the plane is not bad. It wasn't when Luz was tired and thrown away, but it was the host's 16th birthday and was swallowed by Luz the next day. Yanj nestled in the quilt, the man grabbed her and reached out, stroking her beautiful body with a palm stroke. The lingering touches like this body is a peerless treasure in the eyes of men. Yanji squinted to pretend to sleep, and asked the cub in his consciousness, "Is this Luozi, a mighty one?" "No," said the cub. "He is not a mighty man. You can rest assured that it will be fine if you sleep so hard." "Yanj, in the last plane, when Renai was a mighty one." "Yes," said the cub, "but he is not blackened." The chicken has no idea why the power is not blackened. Its brain capacity is limited, and it is too lazy to think. The power is in this plane too, guess which one? Yan Song, too lazy to guess. Even if she doesn't try to approach the mighty one will come to her. Now, Yan Ji actually has a faint guess about the mission of this so-called mighty man. This kind of guess is just incredible, so she just thinks about it. The wet kiss fell on Yan Ji's lips, and the kiss was deepened. Without waiting for the man to embrace her body, Yan Ji rolled over to the other side of the bed, covering his nose and mouth, and frowned awfully, saying, "Uncle, your mouth smells bad, you haven't brushed your teeth." After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 832. Most morning kisses ignore the problem of bad breath without brushing this morning. If two people really love each other, maybe they can ignore this little flaw, but how can there be true love in song now? Of course, it can't bear it. Luozi had endured for so many years, and finally swallowed his stomach. He was in a very good mood, and the look of Yanj looked delicate and cute in his eyes. He laughed, got up and went to the bathroom. Maybe he wanted to wash himself off and have a morning gun with Yanj. Yanji glanced at the floor, although the princess dress she wore last night had been torn, but she could barely put it on her body. "This is in Luozi's room." Yanji opened the door barefoot and left the room. The host's room was face to face with Luozi's room, but Yanj stopped out of the room. At the end of the corridor, Luo's cheap son, Luofei, stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window with his back facing Yanj. He was smoking, the smoke rising from him, and the sunlight in front of the floor-to-ceiling window reflected him as a black shadow, only those smoke surrounding him. Yanj did not return to his room. The zipper of the tube top skirt is torn and will fall off at any time. Yan Song can only be used on the edge of the tube top with two hands. She walked to Luofei's side and shouted, "Luofei, what are you standing here silently?" Luofei is the same age as the host. However, the treatment of the two here in Luo's was very different. Obviously, Luofei was born by Luozi, but in terms of treatment, it is obvious that the host is more like that. Because she was petted by Luozi from an early age, the host also became a petulant temperament. Even if Luofei was older than her, she had never called his brother. He always called his name, and sometimes threatened in private. Luofei called her sister to listen. The noisy temperament of different hosts, Luofei has been very cold since childhood. No matter how the host toss or threaten him, he will also ignore. Hearing Yanji's question at this moment, he didn't respond, only turned his head and squinted at Yanji. Seeing Yanj's tube top with his chest in his hands, he turned his gaze and turned his head immediately. "Luofei, when did you learn to smoke? Be careful, I tell my uncle that he will hit you." Luofei didn't respond, but as if raising the bar in silence and words, he took another cigarette. As a result, she coughed 2 times because she was too fast, and Yanji laughed in a low voice. She tilted her head and held Luofei, "Little boy." The words turned and I wanted to go, and I took 2 steps as if I remembered something, and then turned to ask Luofei, "My birthday was yesterday, did you prepare a birthday present for me?" Luofei turned to look at her. Then I realized that the zipper on her back was broken, and the smooth and curved back continued to the groin under the waist. The gully seemed deep and bottomless, and his eyes fell as if he had fallen into it. I wanted to avoid, but my eyes were deep, and I didn't look away for a long time. Yan Ji didn't notice the strangeness of Luo Fei. She had already walked towards her room. Luo Fei, you must give me a birthday present before this afternoon, otherwise I will tell your uncle about your smoking. The way she walked was different from the usual three-step jump, with her legs slightly outward, and the scowl in his eyes was gradually replaced by disdain and sarcasm. It wasn't until she returned to the room that he looked away from her, extinguished the cigarette in his hand, put his hands in his pockets, and walked upstairs. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 833. The host and Lazar's room are on the second floor, while Crofi's room is on the third floor. It didn't take long for Yan Song to enter the room, and the knock on the door rang. Even if the room was locked, Lazar's fingerprints could open the door. However, after entering the door, Yan Ji found something in his hand and smashed the fingerprint screen a few times, and that thing was broken by her. Waiting for Luo Zi knocked a few times, Yan Ji shouted, I want to go to the toilet to poop, don't disturb me. Sure enough, the knock on the door didn't ring again. When going downstairs to eat, Yan Ji tapped his finger at the dining table and called Luo Fei, Hey, Luo Fei, where is the birthday present? Luo Zi, who was sitting next to Yan Ji, looked up and stared at Luo Fei sharply, you didn't prepare a birthday gift for Ming. Luo Fei, who was eating, looked up, no. Luo Zi frowned, it's so good to you on weekdays, why didn't you even prepare your birthday gift, remember to make it up in the afternoon. Luo Fei waited for Luo Zi to finish, and then answered, okay. From beginning to end, I didn't glance at the words, and the words continued to eat slowly, without being affected by words and lores. Luo Zi didn't care about Luo Fei's attitude. He stripped the shrimp while helping the song, and said to her softly, what gift do you want? I will take you out to buy it later. Yanj ate the shrimp he peeled, dissatisfied with his cheeks full of collagen. Lors rubbed her soft, thick, hairy head, eat slowly, don't worry. Yanj reached out and patted his hand away, I will become bald again if you try again. Why are you still upset? The host was arrogant by Luo Zi, even if Yan Ji said so. Luo Zi just looked at Yan Ji with a dodgy face, okay, don't touch it. Yan Ji glared at him when he heard the words, if you touch my hair again, I will make you bald. Luo Ziha laughed, and those eyes staring at Yanj seemed to be extremely happy, okay, no more. Yan Ji snorted and continued to eat his meal. Luo Zi added, I took a leave for you today and take a rest at home for 2 days. Yanj immediately protested, no, I don't want to stay at home, I'm going to school. Luo Zi, who had just put the meat in his mouth, was very patient. Even if Yan Ji fell on his face in front of Luo Fei, he said softly, isn't it good at home? Are you sick? Take a rest for 2 days. Go with. Not good. Yan Ji was unmoved at all, I'm bored at home, I'm going to school. Luo Zi was so tempted, if I feel bored, shall I take you to the company to play? No, Yanj said with a toe guess and knew what Luo thought, I'm going to school. Okay. Luo reluctantly, pinching Yanj's cheeks, go. He looked up at the end and said to Luo Fei, take care of your sister at school. However, he also said casually that he knew the son's temperament best, and he certainly couldn't get into his son's ears. Yanj and Luo Fei are not only in the same school but also in the same class. Later, Luo was afraid that those little long-eyed little farts would harass the host, and he simply let Luo Fei and the host be at the same table. On the way to school, Yan Ji and Luo Fei both sat in the back seat. She turned her head and glanced at Luo Fei. The boy sat there, completely treating her as a transparent person, with a headset as if listening to a song. Yan Ji saw that he didn't respond, so he simply picked up one of his earphones and stuffed it into his ear. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 834. Not listening to songs, but listening to English reading aloud. This guy is really easy to learn. Yanj slaps her mouth and throws the headset back into Luo Fei's hands. With her displeased glance, she raises her chin, staring at me. Do you think your sister and I look good, so fascinated? The driver in the front seat heard this, and his lips were bent. Luo Fei did not talk about the reason, he put the headset back into his ear. Yan Ji said no more, she leaned her head back and closed her eyes against the soft pillow. The people next to him didn't ring, and he gave her a slight glance at her. The girls around her have begun to make up, but she always looks plain, and there is a seat between them, but he can still see the tiny white fluff on her face, like natural the powder shop was sprinkled on her face, so that her face was covered with tender powder, and the texture of her cheeks would be very good. Thinking of Luo Zi who often pinches her cheeks, Luo Fei's eyes became darker and thicker. He glanced at her and regained his gaze, but his thoughts were mixed. Last night, he stood by the window and could hear their voices downstairs. He was no longer a child, and he couldn't understand what she and his father had done. Could not help but narrowed her eyes and looked like she was asleep, and in his mind he once again scolded, a woman husband and a silver woman. When Yanj got out of the car, he handed the bag to Luo Fei. The bag is heavy, Luo Fei, you can help me get it? He glanced at her unnatural legs when she got out of the car, and pursed her lips. Although she looked unhappy, she took the school bag. After taking a few steps forward, he didn't hear her voice as usual, he frowned and turned his head, only to realize that she was walking slowly behind. He looked at her walking appearance, and suddenly remembered that he had a lot of riding, and his legs were worn out. When he walked, it seemed like she was now. However, she is not just a film broken, not between his legs like him. Why? He murmured silently, and although he was impatient, he did not leave first. Probably realized that he was waiting, Yanj followed in a small step, holding Luo Fei's arm at once. Brother, hold your arm. At the end, he smiled and said to himself, I don't know how many girls in our class will be heartbroken in the back, and the class flower in the next class. What is her name? If she sees it, I'm sure I will be sad. Brother, which of these girls do you like? Don't let your sweetheart misunderstand, I can explain it in private. Bye brother, I haven't written my homework last night. Can you ignore me when you close your homework? She whispered a little, although his voice was soft and waxy, but his face was getting worse and worse. He had to pump his hands several times, but she was holding his arm like a nugget, and the whole body seemed to be being beaten. He dragged away. How could there be such a faceless and skinless woman? He could not help but scold, let me go. Yan Ji looked up at him stubbornly, brother, you will not have a girlfriend so fierce. Before waiting for Luo Fei to respond, she said, brother, although you look good, you have a bad temper. Even if you look good, it's useless. Girls like boys to be gentle and considerate. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 835. Luo Fei simply stopped and stared at Yan Song. The dark eyes seemed to be filled with ice residue, extremely cold. This coldness is more like a mockery in disguise. Yanj flattened his mouth, brother, look at you, you can't make a joke at all. Luo Fei slowed his breath, let go. Yan Ji shook his head and rattled in general, don't, I don't let it go, my leg hurts, or you little brother, can you carry me? He responded without hesitation, no. You don't respect your sister so much. In the future, Your sister will say bad things about your girlfriend. He listened to her childish and ridiculous words, anxious, but too lazy to argue with her. Instead, he sang with a smile without seeing him responding, and said, "Fool you, my brother, don't worry, you've had a hard time finding a girlfriend. I'm too late to be happy for you, so I won't get in the way." Luo Fei didn't want to talk to such a woman who had been growing for 16 years, neither had a long chest nor a long head, and she thought she was too cheap. He continued to move forward, but his pace slowed a lot. Yan Ji did not pull his arm again, she let go of his arm and sat on a chair, saying, "Afi, otherwise you go to the classroom first, my leg hurts a lot, sit here and rest for a while." Leg. Thinking of her scream last night, the ridicule flashed from Luo Fei's eyes flashed, he turned and left. But until class, the seat next to Luo Fei was still empty. This woman, skipping class again. It seems that leg pain is an excuse. Although Luo Fei has always been in a state of listening carefully, what the teacher on the podium said, but he couldn't listen to what he said in the brain. Since last night, he feels that his heart is less restless than usual. He actually knew what he was for. Both the women and husbands are so disgusting. Just think about the sound they made last night, and he will vomit. It's okay on weekdays, but last night the two of them. He really wanted to run away from that villa. However, I wanted to watch with cold eyes and see how disgusting the women and husbands and women could be. Until noon, the seat next to it was still empty. At noon, the two will go back to dinner together by car. Didn't take her back, the dead old man got it again, although Luo Fei was very upset, he still called her. No one answered the phone. He dialed again and again. When dialing the third time, Yanj finally picked up the phone. "Brother, would you like to go home at noon today? I have something, I won't go back for lunch at noon." But immediately, she changed her mouth again, "Forget it, you have to go back alone. The old man might not reprimand you, otherwise I would call him and say I want to eat in the school cafeteria today." He and she, at some point, were very tacit, and they both called the guy an old man. However, he was shouting from the bottom of her heart, but she was shouting in front of him. He interrupted her, "Where are you now?" Her voice was obviously a little bit false. I'm shopping outside, and it's not a day or two for me to skip class. Don't be nervous, I'll go there with the old man, and you won't be in trouble." His voice was indifferent but clinging. "Where are you?" "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 836. I have never seen a younger brother like you. Yanj sighed. "Afi, you always stick to your sister like this, how can you find a girlfriend in the future?" Luo Fei interrupted her. "I called him. That he is Lo's, the old man is the weakness of two people." Don't Yanj said immediately. "Will you come over then? Do you know if there is a grove behind our playground? Go around the grove and continue to walk forward with a pile of messy stone forest, my one there sitting under a big locust tree. At the end," he added, "you come early, I can't sit here for too long, maybe I will leave in a while. Oh, my phone has no electricity, just hang up." Luo Fei knew the area that Yanj said. Not only is the terrain remote, but because of the beautiful scenery, everyone is known as the best place to abuse single dogs. Because there are some men and women going to that place. She was sitting in a relatively remote place. Luo Fei looked for a long time and thought that the woman had run away. When she was about to call her, she lifted her eyes and saw her nesting under the big locust tree. She sat on the floor, and the sneakers on her feet did not know where to go. She sat barefoot and said nothing, leaning on the big locust tree, as if she was asleep. At noon, although the sun was warm, the lush foliage had cast a shadow on her, and she sat there motionless, like a doll without a soul. He paused for a moment before striding forward. When I walked closer, I noticed that there was bruise in the corner of her mouth, and her nose seemed to bleed. Her blood was covered all over her face. This woman. Is this a fight? Thinking of the injury on her face, the old man had to shatter in front of him when he went back. He was immediately irritable, and kicked her bare feet. The fans sullenly opened their eyes and looked up at Luo Fei, who was all air-conditioned. He was not affected by his aura. Rubbing his eyes, she yawned slightly, and then patted position beside him. "Afi, sit down." She always called him Luo Fei, when he teased him, called his younger brother, and only when he did bad things and needed him to help her, she would call him Afi intimately. Luo Fei was totally tired of her routine. He put his hands in his pockets and stood there and asked her, "What's going on?" Yan Ji said nothing. She looked up and looked at him. He stood in the sparse leaves. The sun got out of the cracks of the leaves and fell on him. The light and shadow on his body were mottled, and the sharply pointed features of the rhomoids became more and more cool and beautiful. This is still a young man who has grown up like this. In a few years, he will be more attractive than his cheaper dad. He stared at her unnaturally. His ear tips were red, but his face remained indifferent. "What are you looking at?" "Words. You have a caterpillar on your head." Luo Fei stared at Yanji, not frowning. Yanji sighed. "Afi, look at you, only 16 years old. Why did you live as an old man, with a stinking face in the sky, not even laughing, but really nothing like him?" The words were off. About the thought of him, she slightly bowed her head and stopped speaking. He didn't have the patience, and she continued to spend so much in this place. "Go to eat?" Yanji flicked his skirt and heard his words. He shook his head immediately. "I don't want to eat." After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 837. Luo Fei would not coax her to eat like the old man, and she loved to eat or not. "What's going on?" Yanj seemed to haven't heard him interrogate, yawned with Bainan's hand half covered his mouth, and then closed his eyes. "I'm so sleepy, I want to sleep for a while." He stared at her dead pig without fear of boiling water. Feeling very angry, but couldn't help it, he was tired. He even sat beside her, leaning against the tree, and took out his mobile phone to start the game. A corner of the clothes was dragged. His gaze was her hand. Her hands were very small and white, and the tender bones could not be seen by the white and tender. A few small meats swirled on the back of the hand, which was particularly conspicuous. When he reached his throat, he was rolled into his belly again. He pretended to be okay and continued playing the game. She persevered and continued to pull. His short sleeves were almost deformed by her. Just when he was impatient, listening to her said, "Afi, do you hate me so much? Can you hate it?" Qiu Zhan's nest didn't say, but now he was still delusional to be his stepmother, a pair of female wives and silver women, and Chen Qingli and I were in front of him. "Even if I had done that, I did that kind of thing last night. The most disgusting thing is that she is like an innocent person today. It's disgusting to think about it." But her voice, fluttering, aggrieved and sad, didn't seem to ask him, but seemed to define herself. It is self-knowledge. Before he responded, she went on to say, "They all said that I was a Tongyang of the Luo family, and that I was an old hen flying on a branch." His clothes were almost deformed by her. She had to turn her head and was about to speak. When she saw her finger pointing at her own face, she approached him and asked him, "Afi, look at it, look at my face. Where are they like old hens? Why should they say me like that? It doesn't matter if I am your child's child husband. You look good. When your child's child husband raises them, I am reluctant to embarrass them, but they even say that I am an old hen. Afi, look at my face, Do you look like an old hen? Her face was getting closer and closer to him, and her eyes were full of her features, and he even felt that her fluttering eyelashes were swept across his face. Itching made him agitated. He wanted to reach out and push her away. This woman was so disgusted that she wanted to be his child's son. But he remained motionless from start to finish. He heard his own voice saying, "Did you fight with those people?" Yanj seemed to be poked in the soft underbelly, and immediately flinched, and moved away from him. Immediately, however, she was stubbing her neck, and she said, "Not only did I fight with them, I also called them crying fathers, and went home to find my mother. She used to do well in school, but has never risen to the point of fighting." Glancing at the dried blood on her face, he asked, "Are you hungry?" Yan Ji nodded and reacted, shaking his head, "Not hungry." She was like a leaked balloon, leaning back against the tree again, "I'm full and I don't want to eat." He doesn't speak. There is nothing to say. She had no idea what she was angry with. Just keep playing. But after playing for a while, he ripped off his clothes again. He wanted to pull back his clothes and let her put on whatever she said. "But bear with me.